As we all adjust to working remotely and working from home, one of the biggest things that everyone's trying to figure out is how to stay active. And I'm happy to be joined by the Monmouth University Athletics Director of Strength and Conditioning, Tim Rehm. And it's Tim and Tim's office's job to do just that, keep the student athletes active, keep them at their top performance. And Tim, how you doing today?
Eddie, I'm doing great. Appreciate you having me on here. And, certainly hope you're doing well. Your family's doing well. Me and my wife are doing well over here. I know our dog loves having us around as much as we are, but it's all good, all things considered right now.
Well, that is very good to hear, and I appreciate that. All things are good over here as well, and everyone's staying healthy. And as we all adjust to what's going on around us and the new reality that we all face, at least temporarily, many of us can kind of work from home and work remotely. Your job is a little bit different. Your office's job is a little bit different because you guys oversee the strength conditioning, really the athletic well-being of our student athletes. And I can only imagine as we all adjust to doing things differently, that presented a whole different set of challenges for you and your staff.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to the challenges that a lot of the coaches are feeling right now. Just kind of feeling powerless in our ability to, really provide for our student athletes in a way that we're accustomed to, as far as, seeing them every day and giving them the kind of feedback they need. But given the circumstances, we're just trying to do the best that we can. I think it's definitely helpful for what they're able to do right now, with the goal just being, number one, to help them, stay healthy and increase their well-being, whether it be physical or mental or emotional. And then just be there for them in any way that we possibly can be, even if it means outside of the realm of strength and conditioning.
The communication between the administration at Monmouth, from President Leahy and Dr. McNeil on down, has been very transparent this whole time. It's been very open with us. So now, as someone who is dealing with student athletes every day, how has that been kind of for you and for your staff, at least with that initial reach out, working with the coaches, talking to the student athletes about how they're now transitioning into this new way, at least for the spring semester, with what you and your office are responsible for, which is, as you said, their physical well-being?
Well, as you mentioned, with Dr. McNeil and President Leahy, it's never an issue as far as having support from them. Athletics is so important, and they make that very clear with the way that they've been able to help our department. In our case, we've been utilizing an app called Train Heroic, which is essentially an app that we have the highest subscription that you can have. It allows us to have our full 5 strength and conditioning coaches on there. We can develop programs, and then all of our student athletes, no matter what sport, they're enrolled, they have their own accounts. And then basically every single day they get, some kind of a workout set to them, whether it's, exercises or type of conditioning, or maybe it's just, a quote to help motivate them and help them through the day. Because very much like you just said, any communication is something that, is going to be needed for them right now. And, we're happy to do our part.
So I know that's something that all of us who are used to being on the go and working games and being active are adjusting to. So this app that you mentioned, this Train Heroic app, is something that you and your staff are working with and working through to communicate to all the student athletes. So I guess take us kind of behind the scenes a little bit for all of us that don't know kind of how it works. You have this app, you work with different student athletes and coaches. I guess give us those broad strokes, how this works kind of on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so basically, Train Heroic is the program that we're using. It's able to be downloaded as an application, so you can access it through your phone or your iPad or even your computer if you need to. And basically, as the coach, we are able to access a whole library of exercises that have videos attached to them, and we can send that out in a program format. And for some people, it's extremely body weight based. You have to have programs that are available so that if you're, maybe stuck in your apartment, you don't even have the ability to go outside, you're still able to, clear a little bit of space and get a solid workout in. Okay. And then it also goes up to some more advanced programs that we put out for people that might be lucky enough to have, a garage gym or a gym in their basement. So we provide programs for them as well. So it's not just a one-stop shop deal. different teams have different programs, and different people with different accessibilities to weight equipment or no weight equipment are going to have a program tailored straight to them. So in that respect, it makes it extremely helpful. And, the one good thing that probably comes of this is it's introduced our staff to this program, and we may eventually just use this as our future programming tool for all winter and summer recesses. People go home, and I've been a little bit more old school, sending out, actual printed summer booklets, since I started. So this may be the thing that kind of has gotten me a little bit more open to the technology that's out there. And, I know that the people in the print shop will probably appreciate that a lot when I go in there and need, 50-page books for 100 of our football players or so. So that's definitely a good thing that's come of it.
Yeah, whether it's this Train Heroic app or whether it's Zoom or anything else, I think we're all getting a lot better at all kinds of technology than we ever were. And to hear you mention that, Tim, it sounds incredibly convenient and it sounds great. But I know if you're making individual programs and you and your staff are making individual programs for the hundreds of student athletes at Monmouth, I'm sure that's incredibly time consuming, and to go through all of that and meet the individual needs of each student athlete. How is that? Because it seems like quite the task.
Well, it's time consuming, but fortunately, one thing we don't have a shortage of right now is time. So it's really allowed us to dig in, to really expand our knowledge, expand our programs so that we're using this time to the best of our abilities. I do think that's another positive here, that when we do come out of this, I think our staff will be a lot more knowledgeable. I think we're going to have a lot more tools at our disposal from the technology standpoint. And our ways of progressing our program are going to be a lot further along, because it's just given us time to really think about things and be creative and find ways to be basically the best for our student athletes. I would say that our staff now has 5 people, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. I know when I first started working at Monmouth back in 2008, there were just 2 strength and conditioning coaches. So, I kind of think back, what if this were to happen during that time and we had to divide all of our teams up amongst 2 people? So, fortunately, with a staff of 5, it's not so much that we're making it easier on our strength coaches. We want us to have less teams so that we can dive deeper into what we're able to provide our student athletes. We want to be able to give them individualized programs. We want to be able to educate them on sports performance, best methods of recovery and hydration and nutrition. Just being able to be there to communicate, are they dealing with a lot of stress? And maybe we can talk to them about it, or maybe we can recognize that they need a little bit more help and we can refer them on to the proper services. So just making ourselves available has been great when you have a staff of 5, because you can really dig in and be the best version of yourself for these student athletes.
And you mentioned it goes beyond the kind of the basic strength and conditioning requirements. Some things that you mentioned are things that we're all hearing, staying motivated, the mood of people and staying hydrated. So because you do have a staff the size and you all have different sports responsibilities, has, with everything going on now, has that role taken on added importance, not just making sure that you're hitting the workouts, but in addition, all of those other things, like you mentioned, hydration, sleep, things like that?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you talk about, the issues that are presented during a time like this, when, maybe it's even more of a mental battle than it is a physical for some people, or maybe they're not directly afflicted by COVID, but, you're stuck in your house and, your mood is affected. Maybe you're feeling anxious. Maybe you're feeling depressed. We know that exercise has direct positive effects on that. So, even more so with us saying, hey, right now we're getting you ready for sport, which usually is our number one thing, right? For right now, we've kind of shifted our view in that we just want you to get moving so that you feel better. Your mood is positively affected by it. You have less stress. These are all things that are so important for our student athletes. And, maybe our student athletes, they're home with their families. They're getting their families to join in too. So, this is another way for our outreach to make positive effect. And, we feel pretty good about that.
And I know it's something, as all of us that work in intercollegiate athletics have to be concerned with, is obviously, are we doing things the right way? Are we doing them by the book? Are we doing things according to the rules? And I know that one thing that always is evident in working with you, as we have throughout the years, that you find out what the rules are, and then you get the most out of the opportunity that you're presented with the student athlete. So with all this new technology and everything else, I know that that's an evolving thing as far as the NCAA is concerned. And I know something like this, it's a new thing. And I know you've had some conversations with our compliance staff to make sure that everything kind of is above board.
Yeah, I certainly don't envy the role of a compliance person right now, because I think that they're just being hit with so much. And the strength and conditioning part has actually been a pretty substantial part of that, because people want to know, what are strength coaches allowed to do right now? What are they able to report back to coaches, if anything at all? How far can we extend ourselves? So, basically, we're really just allowed to provide programs, and certainly be there as far as any safety measures that might come in, or questions, or how people can be creative given their certain circumstances. So, but as far as like, we're not allowed to be checking in on who's actually doing what. This is a voluntary time period, so that's certainly an obstacle, but it's one that we're working with. And as much as coaches kind of want to know, hey, what's going on, who's being good about their programs and stuff like that, it's really not a conversation that we can have given the circumstance.
Knowing this time of year, as you mentioned, depending on the sport and what we're dealing with now, as you said, it's all voluntary, but knowing this time of year, so it's spring, right? And right now there's certain sports that, if games were still being played, would be in season. There's certain sports that would be in their out of season conditioning, and just kind of, I'll let you kind of take the reins with this one. Take us through not only this app, but through the guidance of you and your staff. I'll let you pick the sport. I'll let you pick the program of the week, but just kind of give us what maybe a week looks like for a certain sport in this time, using this app and also working in cohesion with your staff.
Sure. So if we were talking about football, for example, right now I actually have them training from an exercise standpoint 3 days a week, right? So we're going Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, where they're either doing, their body weight exercises, or if they have the ability to use resistance training and some weight equipment around the house, they're able to do that. And then I have them doing running on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday, where Tuesday is more of a aerobic-based type of run. It's so important, even though you think of football as a sport that's more speed-driven, the aerobic base is so important. So we have to keep that energy system really working well. And then we use the other 2 days to be more speed or agility driven, because when you think about all the things that you can train in the human body, the speed and the power is the first thing that's going to fall off, right? So if you're training your aerobic system, it's going to take a little bit less time for you to be detrained from that. But if you stop running and you stop jumping, that's going to start to fall off after 5 days, right? So it's so important for our sports, especially those that thrive on being explosive sports, and sports that really require you to sprint. You have to do that right now, because not only will you lose the ability to do that, but when we do return, you're going to have a high probability of suffering some type of injury, whether maybe it's soft tissue or something like that. So we've really tried to educate our student athletes about that, and we think that they're doing a pretty good job keeping up.
So much of what we're all kind of sitting around waiting for, right, is the return to sport. So this whole conversation we're having, I think when people are in sports do come back, right, the first thing everyone's going to say is, all right, let's get them on the field. Let's get right away. So how important is this time period now? So like you mentioned, when teams are allowed to practice and games are allowed to resume, it's not like those athletes are going to need a ton of time to maybe get themselves prepared. How important is this time now to staying sharp all the time, so that when sports are allowed back, you're kind of ready to hit the ground running?
Sure. I mean, there's so much that you can talk about there. I mean, purely from a routine standpoint, trying to talk to our student athletes about keeping good routines, about, don't sleep in until 11 o'clock in the morning, waking up at noon, right? Because you're not going to do that once you get back in the fold. So, we encourage them to, still wake up at a normal time, get breakfast, get outside, get some sunlight, or maybe you're going to work out at that time, have a normal lunch, afternoon, some type of activity. We really don't want our student athletes to just really shift their routine so much that they just turn into sedentary people, because then you're going to be presenting so many issues down the road and bad habits that we're going to have to break. So keeping a routine is so important right now. And there's so much that's unknown as far as how much time will be allowed. Once we are given the green light, we're not going to know. All right. But we're going to just make the best of the time that we have right now. And then hopefully the powers that be, when they do start creating schedules, will understand that there is going to have to be a certain amount of time built in for these student athletes to get their physical fitness back up to where it needs to be. Because, you think about people who only have access for body weight workouts. That's simply not enough when you basically talking about how ready they are to return to sport. So, I feel confident that the right decisions will be made when it comes time for scheduling and allowing people to get back to where they need to be. But regardless, just like everything, we're gonna focus on what we can control, and that's maximizing what we can do during this period.
So can we take that advice that you're giving right now for the student athletes? Can we apply that to guys like me and you and people like us in the adult world that are kind of doing the same thing? All that advice sounds like a lot of things that maybe we could take with us too as we kind of get through this as well.
Absolutely. I mean, so much of the advice that we're giving our student athletes is stuff that can be applied for everyone. Just it doesn't even always have to be a workout, but just take 30 minutes to go outside, get some sunlight. I said it's going to go a long way to just help your stress, your anxiety, help your mood, however you can. So, whatever you can do for yourself. You don't need to have a garage gym or a basement gym to get a solid 30 minutes of workout in where you get your heart rate going and you get your blood pumping. And that's just going to go a long way. Like I said, get your family involved. And even through this app, we're able to have the kids comment, and they're going to be motivating other people on the team. So that the problem is not everybody's a self-starter, right? You have certain people who are all about it. They wake up and they're like, oh, I can't wait to get this workout in. Other people have been more reliant on the structure that we've given them at school, where we say, hey, you have to come to workout at 10:30 today. Make sure you're there on time, dressed in the appropriate attire. So some people are that way. And that's why I say, when you can have, a comment section on the app that says, hey, I did this workout today. It was, a good workout, or it was tough workout, or, this is what I did. And they're like, all right, well, so-and-so did their workout, so I better get on that and get my butt going. So that helps.
Well, so maybe we could look at it that way. If we all come out of this and obviously safe and healthy, but maybe an unintended consequence could be, if we all come out of this, student athletes, adults alike, better motivational kind of, like you said, self-starters. Maybe that could be one of those silver linings that come out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important for us to identify the silver lining in the situation, because even though this is a terrible situation, there's a tremendous amount of suffering and loss that's been involved. We can only, once again, focus on what we can control. And I think as far as it goes for a strength and conditioning staff who has so many people relying on them, we have to just take control of our role in this, provide great workouts for the student athletes, really encourage them to do it, let them know and educate them about all the benefits of staying fit during this time. And then, like I said, as a staff, it'll give us a time to, I basically communicated it to them as, we kind of live life normally in the hurry up offense. But for right now, this is our chance to get in the huddle. We're calling the right play so that when it's time to run it, we'll be able to execute at a high level.
Well, Tim, I appreciate the conversation, because if for nothing else, you've made me want to get myself more active. So I'm going to get out and get some of that sunlight, but I do appreciate you giving us some insight into what you and your staff are doing. And again, wish you continued safety, continued health throughout this process. Thanks a lot, man.
Appreciate it, Eddie. Looking forward to seeing you soon. And hopefully it's sooner than later that we're all back in West Long Branch doing what we love.